Welcome to Wild Spirits Outdoors, the place for real hunting talk, tactics, and a few laughs. Now, let's dive in with your host, Brad Dejon.
Hey guys and gals, welcome back to Wild Spirits Outdoors. If you're listening today on the day of the drop, it is August 19th, 2025, and this is episode 4. Episode is titled From Plan to Pursuit, Adapting on the Fly During a DIY Whitetail Hunt. This is going to be kind of a unintentionally set up 2-part series, so we're actually going to expound upon what we talked about last week, which was planning and prepping for that out-of-state DIY hunt. This week we're there. We've made the plan. We made the preparations. We made the drive. It's day one. We're putting boots on the ground. And we're going to talk about just some of the things I've experienced over my years of doing this that really require adaptability in order to continue to maintain a good, positive perspective on the hunt and to ultimately have an enjoyable, successful time while you're there. So as you can see, I've got a couple of different pages or sheets, lots of pages, I should say, of notes here in front of me. This is all things that I've experienced while doing these hunts, and I just want to break them down into segments, I guess, and dive deep into each of them, and hopefully that will help other people that are planning on doing this when they actually get boots on the ground as well. And this stuff can also be used not just for out-of-state hunts, but really for if you're going on to any tract of land that you've never been on, public or private. There's stuff in here that I think you can pull out of that'll be helpful and be useful for you. So before we dive into the meat and potatoes here, a couple quick announcements. If you listened to last week's episode on Spotify or iHeart, iTunes, etc., the audio quality wasn't the greatest. There was definitely a little bit of clicking and popping in there. So I apologize for that. And even more so, if you tried to watch on YouTube and you were actually watching the video stream and listening at the same time, you most definitely noticed that there was a latency between when my mouth was moving and when the words were coming out. And if you're anything like me, if I'm watching TV and that happens, it drives me insane. I change the channel, I change it back. If it's still doing it, I'm done. I'm watching something else. It drives me nuts when I'm seeing mouths moving and then the words are catching up. So I apologize if that happened to you and you were watching it and you couldn't get through it. I don't blame you. I'd be the exact same way. But if these out-of-state DIY hunts are of interest to you, go back and listen through, wherever you get your podcasts, or throw it back on YouTube and just don't watch the video, just listen to it. I think there's going to be some great information in there for you. And then we're going to, like I said, this week, we're really going to dive into what to do when the boots hit the ground on site. Also, big news coming from Wild Spirits Outdoors. Guys, you guys are doing a phenomenal job of growing this and sharing it. I appreciate it so much. We just keep growing every day. We're adding new followers. We're adding new subscribers to the podcast, and I couldn't do this without you guys. I've updated the Wild Spirits Outdoors logo, as you can see on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen right now. I really like how this turned out, and this kind of inspired me to do something new as well. So we're going to have merchandise coming out for Wild Spirits Outdoors. It'll have logos. It's going to have some cool stuff on it, different designs and things like that, maybe some seasonal stuff, but I'm excited to do it. So there's going to be T-shirts, there's going to be hoodies, there's going to be hats. We'll have tumblers, cups, bumper stickers, things like that. This is all to reinvest back into the podcast and back into Wild Spirits Outdoors so we can continue to make this bigger and better every week, make the episodes better, just bring everything to a higher quality, because I want that. I want a good, crisp, clean, high quality for everybody's listening and audio experience. I love listening to podcasts. I do a lot of traveling, so I always appreciate when something's edited and done in a high quality manner, but that takes money and it takes time. So instead of asking you guys to, donate money or join a Patreon or something like that, what I'm asking is, if you enjoy this, grab a t-shirt, grab a coffee mug, whatever, so that money can be invested back into the podcast, into the studio, into the software that's being used, so we can just continue to make this better and better. Okay, enough rambling. Like I said, it's August 19th if you're listening on the day of the drop. I hope you guys had a fantastic weekend. The weather was gorgeous for most places in Michigan. We got a little bit of much needed rain, thankfully. I got to spend my weekend up in the northern lower portion of the the northern lower portion of the lower peninsula. That's a tongue twister right there. But just got to spend the weekend there. Me and the wife went camping. Really did a whole lot of nothing. Just sat around, relaxed, soaked up some nature. It was a great time. So I hope you guys also had a great weekend. We're getting close to season. It's the middle of August. Seasons are actually opening in some states. I don't know the exact dates for sure, but I know there are places in Florida that are opening in August. I pulled up some quick notes here. South Carolina's got zones opening in August. California, I'm not going to be hunting out there anytime soon. That's a bit of a haul, but they've got seasons opening. Nevada, Aloha State, they got seasons opened up, and then Alaska's got some seasons opened up. So it's just a little teaser there. It's going to keep coming. By September, we're going to have a lot of states opened up right here in our neck of the woods, let's say. So it's coming. Make sure you guys are practicing. Make sure you're shooting your bows. Make sure you've got everything ready to go so that when seasons hits, or when your season opener hits, you're ready to go and there's no surprises. And when there are surprises, you can adapt. So enough rambling. I've talked enough on this intro. It's probably the most I've talked on any intro, but I want to dig into it now. So again, last week we talked about prepping and planning for these out-of-state DIY hunts, and now we've done it. We've made the preparations, and we're on site. We made the drive. It's day number 1. What are we going to do? Well, first and foremost, when we arrive in that new location, when we're doing our e-scouting beforehand, we should be picking 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, 6. I'd say a minimum of 4 spots that we're looking at within every area that we want to hunt. Now, that's going to change based on the size of the property, but obviously we're not going to make this trip and we've got one 50 or 100 acre piece of public land that's there to hunt and there's nothing else within hours of it. That's not a good place for us to go look unless we know for a fact that that's just going to be a honey hole, right? We're looking for places that there's multiple pockets within, let's say, 30-minute drive of one another, so that we can pick those out on our maps when we're doing our e-scouting. We can pin those locations. Then when we actually get there, we're going to have these written down or noted that this is my number 1 spot, 2 spot, 3 spot on down the list. So that first day, what I'm going to do and what I would recommend for others to do as well is when you first get there, you're going to spot number 1 right off the bat. You're going to go in there and you're going to go in and say, do my eyes recognize this to be what I expected it to be when I was looking at it in my e-scouting? If you get there and things look totally different than what you expected, you got to take note of that. And if things aren't the way you expected them to be, you've got to be able to quickly make an assessment. Do I want to dig deeper into this, or do I need to move this from the number 1 spot down the list and go jump to my next spot? Sometimes that's easier than other times. I'll give you an example. A few years back, I can't remember. I want to say it's been maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I had gone to a new spot in a state to be named later. And when I got to the parking spot for what I thought was going to be my number 1 spot, immediately when I pulled in, I knew something was amiss because there was obvious signs of some heavy equipment being in that parking spot or in that parking lot. And there was a lot of wood chips laying on the gravel. And lo and behold, this parking spot's basically at the base of a ridge. And you park here, and then you can either go down along the bottom here, or you can work your way up this sawback ridge, basically. And on maps, it looked really, really good, and I was really excited to do it. But then when I get there, either the county or DNR or somebody went in there And again, this is public land. So they went in with a skid steer and like a brush hog, and they went all the way up that ridge, all the way like a mile and a half along this ridge. And then they did a teardrop, and then they came right back down the same spot and cut that whole thing open and basically put in a really nice hiking, mountain biking path on the top of this ridge. And it was fresh. It'd been done like within a week. So I looked at that, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a deal killer for me, right? There might be situations where I can adapt and adjust off of what they did and still make that happen. But just because of how fresh it was, because of how much of a mess was still there, I mean, they hadn't come in and really cleaned anything up, so there was a lot of the stuff that they had cut down was just kind of scattered about. I made the decision at that time to move my number one spot down on my list and then make the trip over to number two spot. And thankfully, when I got into number two spot, everything that I was seeing in real time kind of lined up with what I expected to see based on my e-scouting. So that's a very important aspect of it. Hit those spots, and even if you hit spot number one and it's exactly what you think it is, on that first day, I still suggest you go hit every single spot, or at least two or three of them, because things can change from day to day based on hunting pressure or something crazy can be taking place. So I like to at least know that two or three spots are what I expect them to be, so that I can make changes as the days go along based on where I'm going to set up and how I'm going to approach the hunt. Give me 1 second. I'm going to have me a drink of coffee. Okay. So another situation, you pull into a spot and you see, or you're looking at your maps, and you see this access on the maps that takes you way, way back into a spot, and then it looks like the access ends, and then from there maybe you got a half mile, 3/4 of a mile walk into where you think is going to be a great spot. This happened to me right here in Michigan. I had found a spot that I thought was going to be really good, looked really good. From the main road, it was like 2.5 miles in on this access, and then from there it was like another 3/4 of a mile in. So I'm like, man, this is going to look really, really good. I pull up to the to turn off from the main road onto this access, and the access is completely gated off, and it looked like it was an actual access road, but it's only there for use by authorized vehicles. So DNR and people like that have access to it to get in there, but I obviously did not. So that completely changed the way I was going to go about that. I wasn't prepared to do a 3-mile hike in, so I elected to go someplace else. Those things can happen, and they can change your plans very, very quickly. Another thing that can happen when we're talking about kind of settling in and getting our first impressions of where we're at. I'm going to flip my page here because I want to talk about this. Not only hunting pressure can change things, but just the human element of things can change things. Like I said, hikers, people running dogs, things like that. When I say pressure and changes things, I don't want to come off with a bad connotation. Again, this is public land and it's open to everybody. Human intervention on public land is not always a deal killer. It can actually work in your benefit. It all depends on what exactly is taking place, but you can capitalize on that human pressure if the property lays out for it and the situation allows for it as well. If you see the way people are parked and you're like, man, everybody's coming in with the wind at their back, and in the mornings they're coming in on these high points, and the thermals are pushing everything down to the bases of these ridges that they're at. All these deer down here can smell these people coming in up here, so I'm going to come in from the bottom. I'm going to work my way in from the opposite direction, and I'm going to get up maybe a third of the way up onto that ridge system, just off of the wind, so the thermals are kind of pulling away, and these deer still want to get up into here to bed, but they're going to head this way or whatever the situation is. So I'm taking advantage of what they're doing, and I'm trying to play that game and still get myself into a situation where when those deer are trying to skirt that scent they're catching, they're going to come right by me. So just things to take into consideration. Obviously, there is certain situations where the hunting pressure or the human intervention pressure is going to be too much for you to be able to just sit there and feel confident about what's happening. So you'll know when that point is for you. But just remember, just because somebody comes walking through an area that you're hunting, it does not mean that that the hunt is ruined. A lot of times on this public land, there's people out there, the deer are used to that, and they adapt as well as we do. So keep that in mind as well. Another situation, well, actually, before I go on to section 3, let me talk about 2 years ago, late season muzzleloader in the state of Ohio. I'm hunting public land. I am way in. I'm well over a mile into where I want to hunt. And this was a situation where I felt really, really good about where I was at. I didn't feel like I was going to see much pressure. First day in, no, I take that back. It was the second day in. I was doing all day sits. Second day in, about 4:00 in the afternoon, I hear something, and I'd had some deer working in, and I heard something behind me, and I was in a saddle, so I kind of slowly swung my way around and took a peek, and about 80 yards away, I could see another hunter walking around on the ground. And they weren't being terribly noisy, but and thankfully the wind was the direction they were coming from. I wasn't really expecting to see deer come from anyway, but they were working their way towards me. So I didn't want them to walk right past me and start pushing into where I did expect the deer to come from. So I turned around and I gave him just a quick little, just a quick whistle. He saw me. He acknowledged that I was there, and he turned around and he walked right back out. He got within 50 yards of me. And then within an hour and 20 minutes, I had 3 bucks come in, and one was a stud. And we'll talk about that on another episode, but I blew that opportunity. Had a great buck on public land. I just completely shit the bed. So we can talk about that another time. But I wanted to talk about the positive aspect of it, which is just because a human came in there obviously did not ruin my hunt, because within an hour of him leaving, I had a great opportunity at a fantastic deer. So that's the human element side of it. Now let's talk about what Mother Nature can do to you, because Mother Nature can be a fickle bitch sometimes, and we'll get into that a little bit. So weather's going to affect these hunts no matter what. It's going to affect them positively, or it's going to affect them negatively. There's no getting around it. You can't change the weather. You can't stop what the weather's doing, and you certainly you have to be able to work around it and be able to adapt with what you get. You might have been looking at this and say you were picking everybody loves to hunt the rut, so let's just talk about the rut in this example. But you've been e-scouting this spot, and you've found what you feel is going to be an awesome second week in November hunting spot. And everybody pictures the rut. We picture them cold, crisp days. Just the woods feels alive. You feel alive. There's that constant energy of that cold just pulling into your body, and it just feels amazing, right? So now you get here for your public land rut hunt. Excuse me. And temperatures are 74 degrees. Not ideal, right? Does that mean that the deer... Sorry, excuse me. Let me take a drink. So temperature 74 degrees. Does that mean that the deer are not rutting? Absolutely not. Does that mean that they're going to quit moving during daylight? Absolutely not. Does it mean that the movement's probably going to get suppressed a little bit and they're going to move more during the cooler times of the day? Absolutely. But you can still take advantage of that. You can still hunt that, and you can still have great success doing it. It's just it's a curveball that the weather's throwing at you that you have to be able to adapt to. We can go the opposite direction as well. Here's a great example. 6 years ago, I think it was, on a late season muzzleload hunt. The weather was looking really, really good. We were excited to get down there. There was 2 or 3 of us that went down. And like the day before we headed down, temperatures climbed quite high in the area that we were heading to, well above freezing. And then it started to rain, and it rained a significant amount. And then the day before we were to leave to head down there, the temperatures started to drop again, and then they kind of fell right off the table. The morning that we were arriving, basically, uh, temperatures, as we were getting there, let's say, temperatures were dropping steadily. So by the time we got there, things were just getting to right around freezing, and then the temperature dropped right off, well below freezing, into the single digits and teens. So what happened to all that rain that came down? Well, it turned into like a quarter inch to a half inch ice sheet on everything. You know, power lines were breaking, trees were breaking, and you couldn't walk anywhere without it sounding like every step you took, you were taking a glass plate and slamming it on the ground. Super loud. Everywhere you went was super loud. It was the most frustrating and most challenging environmentally, how do I want to word this? The most challenging environment weather-wise, and how that weather, what that weather did to real world, made it the most challenging hunt I'd ever been on. I didn't know how to approach it. I was lost. I didn't know what exactly I should do. I was trying to make adaptations as I went, but it's like, how do I even hunt in this? I can't go anywhere without it sounding like, I'm just smashing plates as I'm walking through the woods. So that lasted for 2 days. So basically, what we elected to do, and I think what was the best thing for us to do, is for those couple of days when it was like that, we didn't get out there first thing in the morning. It stayed cold like that for basically 2.5 days. So we would sleep in, we'd eat a good breakfast, we'd get in the truck. The roads had been salted, so the roads weren't too bad. It was just once you got off the road, things were crazy. And we would just drive a lot of the areas that we were looking at and do a lot of glassing, try to figure out, what the deer were doing. And the deer seemed to be sleeping in too, because we would see a lot more deer than I would expect to see later in the mornings, coming out onto those, some of those bigger agricultural food sources on private land. And I think what it was is kind of the same thing we were feeling. It's just everything was so noisy, but also when the sun would come up, it would at least warm things up enough to where, maybe they could get at some of the grasses and stuff. Maybe a little bit of that ice would come off and it'd be easier for them to eat. So we did that for a couple of days. And then when that temperature kind of figured itself back out and it leveled back off, it had warmed up enough so things could kind of melt, and it got a little bit quieter. I wouldn't say, it was back to normal, and unfortunately we didn't get any snow to kind of pad that, but it got to where we could actually go out and hunt. And if you took your time and were careful, you could at least get into areas relatively quietly. So it was still a very challenging hunt. Ended up doing more like still hunting type hunting than anything, just because the best way to do it was to get into situations where you were on the east side of a slope in the morning where the sun was hitting it. It was warming things up, and you would basically work your way in on those and just look down into the various draws and see what you could see. So very challenging. We didn't come home with anything, but we were able to at least adapt and learn some things and enjoy the hunt better than we would have if we'd have just said, screw it, Excuse me. Sorry, guys. I got a tickle in my throat today that's driving me insane. Another thing to think about when we do this. Now, this one's really close to me, because when I go on these out-of-state hunts, like the inner child in me goes nuts when I get into the woods. Like, I'm like bright, shiny object kid. Like, ooh, look at this, look at this, look at this. I really got to pull myself back and say, hey, you're here for a particular task. You scouted this area for a particular reason. We're trying to get to a particular location. That doesn't mean I don't take note of what I'm seeing as I go. But I got to pull myself back in, because next thing I know, I'm following a rub line that's probably 10 years old, just to see where it goes, because I get all excited when I see that stuff and I just want to do it. And then as I'm walking, next thing I know, I'm 200 yards off a course from where I wanted to be. And then I'm thinking, hey, what's over this next ridge? What's across that creek? And then I can end up way off course very, very quickly, because I just get into this wanderlust mode where I just want to explore. So I got to pull myself back in. And I also have to remind myself that what I'm looking for is not, obviously I want to see old sign. I want to see historical sign that creates a historical data set, so I know, deer have used this over the years. But what I really need to see for the hunt that I'm in is I need to see the most recent fresh sign that there is. So if I'm looking at sign that appears to be 3-4 weeks old, that's not doing me any good for the hunt that I'm in. I need to be finding sign that's, a day or two old, fresh sign. And that's not just rut. We're not talking just scrapes and rubs, guys. We're talking browsing sign. We're talking deer droppings, early season. We're looking for actively falling acorns, or we're looking for the active hot food source, whatever that is. You don't want to see a bunch of old sign where, holy smokes, there was a lot of deer under these few oak trees right here, and they were hammering those acorns, and the acorns are scarfed up. Does it make sense to sit there and hunt that? No. I mean, a deer or two might come in and see if there's any acorns left, but the majority of the deer have moved on to another oak tree that is actively dropping, and that's their new food source. So we got to find that fresh sign again, whether it's early season and it's mass crops like acorns, or if it's the destination food source that they're going to. We got to find that fresh location and that fresh sign. So we're doing that by looking for obviously fresh tracks. We're looking for deer droppings. We're looking for signs of browse, and we're taking all that into consideration. Now, in the as we're moving into the rut, obviously we're looking for, and we're actually smelling too. I mean, you get into some of these spots. These bucks stink, right? I mean, their testosterone's going. They're pissing on themselves. They're all their glands. They're trying to secrete a lot of scent. They're trying to stake territory. You can get into spots and it just smells bucky. You know what I mean? If you get in a spot and you can just smell that, like you're in some fresh areas. So we're looking for that. We're looking for the fresh scrapes. We're looking for obvious signs of a lot of movement. I mean, you can pick up deer trails where you can see deer been up and down these trails quite a bit. That's a good sign for you. Then we can fast forward into the late season, and it's kind of reverting back to the kind of sign we're looking for in early season again. So we're looking for signs of heavy browse. If there's snow on the ground, obviously that makes it way easier to figure out where the fresh spots are, because you can just follow the tracks, right? So if you don't have snow, you can still find it. You're looking for the freshest browse sign you can. And again, you're really honing in your late season on food, because food is king in the late season. So those are things that we got to look for when we're on the ground. We got to make sure that the sign we're reading is fresh sign and it's not old sign. Like I said, I can get way off sidetracked on looking at old signs just because I get off on seeing all that, and I just love to find sign, and I start exploring. So I really got to, like I said, pull myself back in. The e-scouting is fantastic to get you into these right areas, but once you pick that bubble, let's call it, you got to get in there and look around in that bubble to find exactly where you need to be. So the e-scout's giving you the 10,000 foot view. Now we got to get in there and we got to find within this area, where's the fresh sign? Where's the best place for me to be? Another major aspect of this on these out of state hunts is time management. You only got a certain amount of time to be there and get this done. So 5 to 7 days, typically, let's say. You got to be able to manage your time and make sure you're maximizing the amount of time you're putting in. So I like to break it down by my days. Day one, I really don't intend on doing any hunting. Day one is just basically speed scouting, and not even really diving deep into my speed scouting, but it's really, like I said at the very beginning, it's just hitting my 1, 2, 3, 4 spots, hitting them and giving them a quick look and make sure that what I'm seeing matches what I thought I would see in my e-scouting. So that's my day one. I first go into that spot. Typically in the morning, I'm not going in before daylight on that first hunt. I'm usually going to get to the parking spot about at gray light. That gives me a couple benefits. One, most people that are going to be hunting in there are already in. So if I pull in and there's 20 trucks in the parking lot, I know that there's going to be a significant amount of hunting pressure in there. And I'm probably going to move on to a different spot. If I do pull in at gray light and there's nobody there, okay, that's good for me. Now I'm going to get my stuff around and I'm going to wait until I can see very easily and make my maneuvering into the woods without making a ton of noise and crashing into stuff. And I'm going to slowly scout my way into where I think I need to be. And I'm just going to keep working and keep working. And if I'm seeing things on the way in that look good, I'm making note of them. I'm marking things on my map and saying, hey, maybe I don't need to go as far as I thought. Maybe I just need to come back to here. But I'm working my way in and I'm taking notes of everything. And this is where, like I said, we've got that 10,000-foot view, but now we gotta zone in on where exactly within that area we need to be. So that's what I'm doing on my first morning is I'm scouting my way in. I might not even get back to where I'm intending on being until, almost midday. So then at midday, I'm going to probably eat a little quick snack and I'm going to sit there probably underneath the base of a tree or on a stump, and I'm going to look through everything I found. By midday, I should have a pretty good idea of what I'm working with there. So now I'm going back through everything that I found on my way in, and I'm trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Now, how are the deer utilizing this, and where's my, based on the sign that I'm seeing, where's my best possible location to sit to maximize my opportunities. And once I find that, I start working my way to that setup, taking into consideration what I'm anticipating how deer are using this based on wind, thermals, etc. I'm trying to work my way back to that location, taking into consideration everything about the wind and how deer are going to use it, and get myself set up. And I'm going to hunt that. I'm going to get set up. I do a lot of saddle hunting. So I'm going to get up where I want to be, and I'm going to hunt the rest of that day. 9 times out of 10, I'm going right back there the next morning. So a lot of times I'll hunt that till dark. I'll leave my platform up in the tree. I'll leave everything ready to go. All I got to do is, come back to that spot in the morning. So then day 3, I'm in that spot. Now you can see how quickly this has already happened, guys. We went from, day 2 is done now. We've gone from day 1 where we're scouting. We're going in the morning of day 2. We've found a spot. Now we're already on day 3, and this is our first morning hunt. So this is how quickly these 5 to 7 days can go. That's why managing your time and not getting in too big of a hurry to go hunt just a hunt can be beneficial. So on that day 3, I'm typically going right back to that same spot, unless something completely made me believe that was the wrong spot. I'm going back in there, and I plan on sitting there for the entirety of the day. It can be tough. If my gut's telling me that I'm in the right spot, I got to force my mind to stay put. I'd rather trust my gut and give a spot 3 good hard days of hunting, and ruin it, or not. I shouldn't say ruin it, but come away empty-handed. Then be bouncing around like crazy and never really even knowing what's going on. So if I find a spot that I truly believe in on these short hunts like this, I'm typically planning for 3 solid days of hunting. If I find a spot that I believe in, I'm going to give it all 3 days, and that can be tough. So I gotta create these little games that I play with my mind and give myself little rewards for sticking it out an extra hour, so on and so forth. Now let's say on day 4 of this hunt, and for this one we're going to say it's a 7-day hunt. Day 4, the spot that I thought was it and my gut was telling me was it, I've been in there now for 2 full days and a half a day, and nothing's coming together. I'm not really seeing any activity at all. A lot of times you'll make these little micro adjustments on those days where you're definitely in the right area, but you might have to tweak your setup by 50, 60, 100 yards, or you might just be completely out of the game. You've got to trust your instincts. You got to trust your experiences in the woods and make that decision. Am I moving, or am I making a micro adjustment, or do I just got to completely bail on this area and go find another spot? Those are things that just have to come with your experience and what you understand about the hunting itself. Your gut and your instincts should be your driving force when it comes to this. Obviously, your eyes are going to tell you that everything you need to see to believe this is good is there, but it's that hunter's instinct inside of you that's ultimately going to dictate: do I need to stay here, or do I need to bail and find another spot? It's a fine line, and it's a tough game to play. One of the biggest traps is, option A, option B, and you can fall into either trap. Option A is bailing on a spot way too early, and then option B is just digging your heels in. And option B a lot of times can come at you guys. At least it comes at me later in the week that I'm hunting. Especially if you're doing a lot of, you're going in deep, or it's not an easy access to get in there. We get lazy, and 3 days in, and you're like, screw it. I don't feel like tearing everything down and doing this all over again for the last 3 days of this hunt. So I'm just going to dig in and stay here. It could work for you, but it could also be detrimental to the outcome of your hunt. And it's just one of those traps that can be very difficult to navigate. So again, trust your gut. Don't let your mind play games with you. Really trust your instincts and let them guide what you're going to do. And that kind of plays into this next topic, and that is the physical and mental endurance side of things. So give me 1 second. I'm going to take another drink. That's some good coffee. The physical and mental endurance side of this thing can also be huge. Now, this is whitetail hunting. We're not hiking the mountains out west, but it can still be physically demanding. There can be a lot of places that we go into where we are doing a lot of different elevation changes, and we're up and down, or we're walking in, long distances, things like that. Again, I'm not trying to say that this is like an elk hunt out west, but it can be physically demanding, especially when you're trying to pack all this into just a few days, right? 5-7 days. You're on the move a lot, and you're probably not getting a ton of sleep because you're getting in early. You're spending all day in the woods. You're getting out late. Then you got to make the drive back. Get a little food in your system, and you're probably going to be like me, and you're going to sit there and you're going to pore over your maps and really look at that area you were in, and think about any micro adjustments you might have to make in that zone, or if your gut's telling you might have to make a move after the next day. So you're going to start looking at options around there. That can be mentally exhausting, which can lead to physical exhaustion because you're not sleeping. Let's be honest. When you go into a new spot, it's super, super exciting, but it can also create that adrenaline dump. So that excitement builds and builds and builds, and then it happens. You kind of dump that adrenaline, and now it can really start to wear you down. The terrain could be a little bit steeper than you expected it to be, or you could have gotten a significant amount of rain and everything's super slippery. It's not fun going up and down ridgebacks and dropping into these bottoms and going back up to the next one on slippery, muddy ground. There's been more than one occasion where I've, slid on my butt trying to go up a ridge and slid, 50, 60 feet back down to the bottom. And then I got to start all over again. That can wear you out. Your boots get caked with mud. That's something that we're not going to talk about in this one, but maybe that's an episode 3 to this series that we do at another time. And that's, packing the proper. We talked about it a little bit in the first one, but footwear is extremely important. Something you don't think about, especially when you're in these muddy areas, is the amount of weight that your boots can pick up carrying mud around, and being able to change out the appropriate footwear can be key. So I don't want to jump into that tangent right now. I'm going to try to stay on the task at hand here, but that's just something to take into consideration. So again, the aspects of these hunts can drain you mentally, which can also drain you physically. Making sure that we're staying hydrated is very, very important. I know that I have a tendency to not drink enough water when I'm out on these hunts, especially when it's colder out. You don't necessarily feel that need to drink like you do when you're sweating, but it's actually very important, very crucial at those points in times to also make sure you're staying hydrated, and also make sure you're taking in enough calories just to maintain body temperature. The colder it is, the more calories your body is going to be burning just to maintain body temperature. So you got to make sure you're taking in enough to account for that. So making sure that we're eating, making sure that we're hydrating, that's all going to help keep us physically and mentally in the game. You have to make sure that when you're staying in the game, that the physical aspect of it doesn't I don't know exactly how I want to word this. You don't want to let the physical aspect of it just kind of slide because you're like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. 2-3 days of humping back and forth in and carrying your equipment, you can get really worn out. And that's when, let's be honest, bad things can happen when you're not staying mentally sharp. And if you're physically worn down, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. If you're physically worn down, it messes with your mentality. If you're mentally worn down, it messes with your physicality. So just make sure that you're uh, staying aware, staying alert of what's going on, to keep yourself from getting in situations that are not going to be ideal. Now let's take this all the way to the end. We've done all the planning. We've gone through everything. We've gone through all these aspects that we just talked about. The plan came to fruition. We made a shot. We've been successful in releasing an arrow at an animal or firing a shot with the muzzleloader or the gun, whatever it is, at the animal. On my home turf, on my home property, I know 99% of the time, depending on where I'm sitting on my property, if I shoot an animal, where it's going to go on my property or which direction it's going to take off and where it's going to try to get to find safety. When I'm on uncharted territory and properties I've never hunted before, I have no idea. I can make assumptions as I'm sitting there, based on what I'm seeing the terrain do that I think, if I shoot one, it's probably going to go this way, but I really have no idea just because I've never been there before. And deer do different things. I mean, you might shoot one and you expect it to drop down into this thick bottom and it turns and it runs freaking straight up a ridge for whatever reason. So it's very important that once you've made that shot, you stay focused in this goes back to stuff that we're taught in hunter's ed, right? But watch that animal intently and listen. Watch it until it disappears. And when you lose sight of it, you keep your eyes locked on where you last saw it. Get your phone out, snap a picture of some kind of landmark that's nearby there. Because when you're in these places you've never been and if you're hunting from a tree, for example, when you get to the ground, things can look totally different. So try to get a mental picture or take a physical picture of some kind of landmark that was where that animal was when it last disappeared. That way you have something to reference because maybe you shot right before last light. It's going to be tough to go out there in a place you've never been and try to track that deer in the dark. So weather permitting and, predator permitting, hopefully you can, if you hit a money shot, you think you heard it go down, absolutely go in there and try to find it. But if you're not sure of everything that transpired, getting that picture can be very helpful if you have to come back out the following morning, and try to put a track on this animal. So that's something that gets overlooked because we don't necessarily, or I shouldn't say we. I have definitely um, overlooked that in certain times when I've been out on these hunts, is just how different terrain can look when you take that shot and then you get down and you try to go back to where that animal was standing and you turn back around and you're like, I'm a pretty good woodsman, but when I get down and I'm not familiar with this land at all, I'm trying to figure out where the heck I was, where was my tree at? Or I get down and I walk over and I'm trying to find where I thought I last saw that animal, and it's like, where did that stump go? So it's just really important to keep that stuff in mind to make sure that you can successfully recover your animal. Also, when it comes to the post celebration, you found your animal. Things to keep in mind as well. How far in are you? How are you going to get this animal out? Did you water access in with a kayak or a boat? You got to get this animal into a boat or onto your kayak and out of there. Do you have to pack it out? Don't be a bonehead like I was last year here in Michigan and try to drag a deer a mile. That was stupid and that sucked. I'll never do it again. So, can you get in there with a deer cart? Can you get in there with a jet sled? Things to keep in mind for that, post success factor is getting your animal out of there. And then once you do get it out of there, what do we got to do to prep that animal? Is it going to be super cold? Is the deer going to be fine if we get it hung, or do we need to get this thing broke down and packaged up as quickly as possible? Did we shoot something that we want to bring back and take to a taxidermist back in our home state? If that's the situation, we also got to take into consideration what do we have to do that. Here in Michigan, if I harvest a deer out of state, I can't bring that deer back in whole. I have to break that deer down. I can't bring any spinal matter in, and I can't bring any brain matter in. So if I want to get a deer mounted, I have to cape it, I have to deskull it, and I have to break that meat down. If I'm out there by myself, not a big deal. I spend a couple days, I break the deer down. I don't have to be in a hurry, and I make my way home. If I'm out there with some buddies, I don't want to just bail. That's part of going on this trip is the camaraderie of being there with your buddies on this hunt too. So I can either break it down myself, or what I've done is I've called some local taxidermists in the area that I'm hunting and said, hey, I'm down here on day 2 of a 7-day hunt. I was successful at harvesting one. I want to bring my meat and everything home. Do you guys have a recommendation for a good processor around here? And they usually do. And, there's nothing wrong with taking it to a processor and just saying, hey, I'm leaving on Friday. Can you get this thing broke down and put in your freezer and just keep it in your freezer for me until I go home? That way there's no question about what's going to happen to your meat. So keep those in mind. Make sure that when you're transporting these animals, you're following regulations, you're following rules. We don't want to get in trouble with Mr. Green Jeans. We don't want to be on the YouTube for breaking any rules, anything like that. So make sure that we understand the regulations of what we are allowed to do and what we cannot do. And if you tag out early, again, even if you're solo, but especially if you're with some buddies, definitely no reason to end that trip short. Go do some scouting for next time you're down there, or go do some scouting. And, if your buddies are having trouble finding a spot to get into, go do some scouting and see if you can find something for them. But take advantage of that time. Go explore. That's the whole reason for doing this is you get to see new things and experience, new landmarks, new locations, all that good stuff. So take full advantage of that while you're out there, guys. That pretty much wraps it up. Just a quick recap. Again, day 1 is your reality check. Day 1 is where the eyes are going to tell you if you're e-scouting and what you saw on the maps is what's actually happening there. Be ready to adjust based on pressure, whether it's hunting or just human pressure in general, or weather. Don't let the weather ruin your hunt. Make sure that you take into account what the weather's doing and make modifications to how you're going to hunt based on that. Make sure that the intel that you're pulling is fresh. You're looking for fresh sign. You're looking for fresh intel. Don't let old sign dictate where you're going to hunt, because that old sign is not where the deer are now. Managing your time is very, very important. Yeah, your time is going to be one of your most valuable assets because it's one of your most limited assets on these hunts. Keep your body fresh, keep your physical awareness to you, keep your mind sharp, stay ready to go, and keep yourself in the game. That's very important. Hydration, food, make sure you're getting some sleep. I know it's going to be tough to get good quality sleep, but do your best to get some sleep to keep the body moving and keep the mind sharp. And then, remember that adaptability is what's going to keep you in the game, and it's going to help you separate yourself from success and failure. I never consider whether or not I tag an animal to be my success rate. But if I go in and I just feel like, I was never in the game, I never got myself in the right situation, that to me is a failure. That's something that I need to build on and become better at if I'm going to go do this again, right? What I consider a successful hunt is it starts all the way back to my prepping. Did I prep properly? Was my e-scouting as good as I thought it was? When I got boots on the ground, did my eyes line up with what I anticipated to see with my e-scouting? Again, some of that's out of your control. But if you go into a spot and it's still pristine, but you get there on the put boots on the ground, you're like, wow, this looks like absolute garbage. I need to do a better job on my e-scouting. I need to figure out what it was that made me think this was good. And then when I get there, it's not good at all. So, that's an aspect of it that I consider to be success. And then once I get in there and I start hunting, did I feel like I was in the game? That's important to me. It's not to me. of course I want to shoot something. We all do, and we don't want to go eat tag soup every time we do this. But if I feel like I had myself in the game, maybe I didn't get an opportunity to draw my bow back, but I was in the game. I had those opportunities where, if things would have played out just a little bit different, I definitely would have had an opportunity to let an arrow go. That's a successful hunt to me. As long as I feel like everything that I planned kind of went the way I thought it was going to, I was able to adapt to things that changed while I was there, and I felt like I was in the game. That's a successful hunt to me. So I hope you guys feel the same way. I hope you guys don't measure your successes and failures based on whether you're putting a deer on the wall or not, or putting meat in the freezer. Obviously, we want to do both, but there's so many other aspects of the hunt to me that make it a successful one. So keep that in mind. If you've got a story about going on an out-of-state hunt yourself and, things just went out the window, completely everything just took a freaking left turn when you got there, I'd love to hear about it. We could probably share some good laughs over it, because I know I've got plenty of them. So if you got one of those, shoot me a DM, drop a comment on the website, put a comment here in the YouTube feed or on the Spotify feed, wherever you're listening. I definitely would love to hear about it. Guys, hit me up on Facebook or Instagram, Wild Spirits Outdoors. Just love to connect with you. If there's anything going on exciting in your neck of the woods, archery related, hunting related, any shows going on, shoot me a message, let me know. I'm hoping to start making more of these shows as well. So I'm always looking for where those are, and all I can get to them. Last but not least, next week we're going to shift gears a little, I believe. We're working on making sure we have this guest lined up and put in place. So as of right now, we have the intentions of having a guest in studio. I'm excited about this. It's going to be a little bit different than what I think you would expect to hear this time of year. We're kind of in an interesting situation as far as the timing of where we're at, because we're kind of hitting the end of food plots. We're a little too early to really get super excited about digging into, that first opening week, especially for places like Michigan where it doesn't start till October. And then I don't want to get too excited and burn ourselves out talking about rut hunting. So we're going to talk about something that's maybe would be overlooked this time of year. Let's just put it that way. And I'm excited to have this guest in. So it's just a little teaser for you. More to come. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, iHeart. Drop a comment, follow along. I'm going to put some more teasers out about what this next episode's coming out to. Again, also remember, merchandise is coming soon. Keep an eye on Instagram and Facebook for some more information on that. Until next week, guys, I appreciate you joining. Thanks for tuning in. This is Wild Spirits Outdoors. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Wild Spirits Outdoors. We appreciate you joining us on this journey. Don't forget to like, follow, and share wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us grow the tribe and keep on chasing the wild. Stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram at Wild Spirits Outdoors, and also on YouTube at Wild Spirits Pod. You can also head over to www.wildspiritsoutdoors.com for more content. Until next time, chase the wild, feel the spirit,